All right, so today we're going to be looking at some business analysis training
Ooh,
materials.
exciting.
Yeah, well, maybe not beach reading material, but I think there's going to be some interesting stuff in here.
I think so.
Yeah, we've got this pretty detailed printout from a training session,
Okay.
all about, user stories and use cases and requirements and all that good stuff.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's ready to extract some insights, kind of get a crash course in business analysis.
I am. I am.
Okay, perfect. So one of the first things I noticed that I thought was kind of interesting was this whole concept of like tracing a requirement.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? It's not just like checking a box, right?
No, not at all. It's sort of like, think of it like a detective's investigation.
Oh, okay.
You're not just looking at a clue in isolation. You're trying to figure out how it connects to everything else. You've got the motive and the suspects and the whole case.
Yeah,
So tracing a requirement is really about understanding its impact on everything else. So, the scope, the budget, the risk,
right.
and of course, how it ties back to what stakeholders actually need.
Okay, so you're kind of building this like web of connections, making sure that everything's aligned and nothing falls through the cracks.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about managing complexity and making sure you're building the right thing the right way.
Right.
And speaking of the right way, the training really emphasizes how important communication is when it comes to requirements.
Yeah, and they even point out some things that maybe don't belong in that communication process, which I thought was interesting, like performance metrics.
Yeah,
Kind of surprised me.
that's a subtle point, but it makes sense. I mean, performance metrics are definitely important,
Right.
but they come later,
Okay.
When you're initially communicating requirements, it's all about clarity. It's about understanding stakeholder needs. You're painting the big picture,
Right.
not overwhelming everyone with, a bunch of data points.
Yeah, it's like getting everyone to agree on the destination before you start planning the whole itinerary.
Exactly. Yeah, you need that shared understanding before you can dive into the nitty-gritty.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, let's imagine we're cruising along with our plan and everything's going great, and suddenly you get a curveball from the marketing team.
Uh-oh.
They've got these new requirements that were never part of the original scope. How do you handle that as a business analyst?
Ah, the dreaded scope creep.
Right. Do you just like shut it down, or is there a more, diplomatic approach?
Well, the training actually gives you a few options.
Okay.
You can amend the existing requirements or adjust the solution scope, or even consider shifting to a more, agile, change-driven approach.
Right.
But no matter what you do, communication is absolutely key.
Okay.
It's about working with stakeholders to find a solution that addresses those new needs without derailing the entire project.
So it's not about saying no, it's about saying, let's figure this out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, now let's get into something a little bit more technical.
All right.
Let's talk about user stories and use cases. Okay. These seem like pretty fundamental tools for actually, translating those stakeholder needs into like actionable steps.
They are, and the training actually gives some very specific definitions.
Okay.
So a user story is a brief statement describing something the system needs to do for the user,
Okay.
whereas a use case provides a more detailed description of how the system should behave in a variety of scenarios.
So if the user story is like a snapshot, the use case is like a full-blown movie scene
Yeah,
with all the different actions and possible outcomes.
I like that analogy.
Okay.
But how do you make sure that you're crafting effective user stories? That's where the INVEST acronym comes in.
INVET. Oh, this is good.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that stand for?
It stands for independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you want your user stories to be like self-contained,
Right.
but also flexible.
Uh-huh.
They should provide clear value to the user, be easy to kind of estimate in terms of effort, manageable in size and testable, to make sure that they're actually meeting those requirements.
You got it.
Okay, and to make those user stories even more clear and testable, you need something called SMART acceptance criteria,
Yes, you do.
which stands for.
Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-boxed.
Okay, so give me an example.
Sure. Imagine you're building a holiday travel booking system.
Okay.
A smart acceptance criterion might be users should be able to search for holiday deals based on destination travel dates and budget, and the search results should be displayed within 5 seconds.
Okay, so it's not just saying it should work, it's defining exactly what working means
Exactly.
in a way that you can actually measure and test.
Right.
Okay, and how about this definition of ready? What is that all about?
So the definition of ready is a crucial checkpoint before you move into development.
Okay,
It's like a final quality check for your user story.
gotcha.
It makes sure that you've covered all your bases, you've met the INVEST criteria, acceptance criteria are defined, any dependencies are identified, and everyone's on the same page about what's being built and how it's going to be tested.
Okay, so no surprises for the development team.
Exactly.
Now let's take a closer look at use cases.
Okay.
The training uses this really detailed example of an ATM cash withdrawal,
Oh, yeah.
which seems like such a simple transaction.
Yeah.
But it turns out there's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
That's what's so fascinating about use cases.
Right.
They force you to think through all the different paths a user could take.
Yeah.
You've got the happy path where everything goes smoothly,
Right.
but then you've got all the alternative flows. What happens if they enter the wrong PIN or try to withdraw more money than they have or forget to take their card?
Oh, yeah.
All those things.
So it's about anticipating problems before they even happen.
Exactly. That's a key principle of good business analysis.
Right.
Thinking ahead, designing systems that are robust and user-friendly no matter what.
Okay, now how do user stories and use cases actually work together? Are they like separate entities or do they kind of connect somehow?
They definitely connect.
Okay.
User stories often map to specific steps or even entire flows within a use case.
Okay.
So, for example, you might have a user story like, as a bank customer, I want to withdraw cash from my account.
Right.
And then within that withdraw cash use case, you would have those detailed steps outlining exactly how the system handles that withdrawal.
So you're basically zooming in from that high-level user need
Right.
to the very specific actions that will fill that need.
Precisely.
Okay, now the training also talks about this idea of slicing user stories.
Yes.
Horizontal versus vertical. So imagine you're slicing a cake.
Okay.
Horizontal slicing would be separating the layers, the frosting, the filling, the cake itself.
Yeah.
But vertical slicing means cutting through all those layers. So you
Yes.
get a complete piece of cake.
That's the one.
And when it comes to user stories, it's those vertical slices that you want.
Exactly.
Because they represent a complete piece of functionality.
Right.
Right, so a vertical slice actually delivers a fully functional feature from like the user interface all the way down to the database.
Yes.
And it's more valuable and easier to test than a horizontal slice, which is really just focusing on one layer.
Exactly.
So it's about delivering value in like bite-sized chunks that users can actually experience and benefit from.
Right.
I'm starting to see how all of these kind of dry concepts actually come together
Yeah.
to create something tangible and impactful.
They do.
Now, I know we've just scratched the surface here.
Yeah.
There's so much more to unpack in this training material.
There is a lot more.
But yeah, I think this is a good place to kind of pause and take a break.
Okay.
And then when we come back, we can dive into some of those other areas in more depth.
Sounds good.
All right, so stay tuned.
I will.
All right, so we're back and ready to dig a little deeper into this business analysis training material.
Okay.
We've talked about tracing requirements, user stories, use cases. Now I'm kind of curious about, what are the actual tools and techniques that business analysts use
Right.
to keep everything organized and on track?
Yeah, that's a great question. The training actually highlights a few key tools,
Okay.
starting with something called a configuration management system.
Okay, that sounds pretty techy. What is that?
So basically think of it like a sophisticated filing system
Okay.
for all your requirements documentation.
Gotcha.
It helps you track changes, maintain different versions,
Right.
and make sure that everyone's working from the most up-to-date information.
So it's like version control for documents.
Exactly.
Preventing, those, wait, which draft are we looking at moments?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just about avoiding confusion. It's also about ensuring traceability.
Right.
So you can see how requirements have evolved over time, who made changes and why,
Okay.
which is essential for auditing purposes and for understanding the decision-making process.
That makes sense. What else is in the toolkit?
Another important tool is the issues log.
Issues log. Okay, so is that just like a place to air grievances?
Not exactly. It's a more structured way to track and manage any problems or concerns
Right.
that come up during, the requirements gathering and analysis process.
Gotcha.
So you document the issue, you assign responsibility for addressing it,
Okay.
and then you track its resolution.
So it's a proactive way to prevent, small hiccups from becoming major roadblocks later on.
Exactly. It's all about transparency and accountability.
Okay.
And speaking of communication, the training also really stresses the importance of fostering open dialogue throughout the project.
So it's not just about, formal meetings and documentation. It's about creating that culture of open communication.
Exactly. The training actually suggests encouraging informal conversations,
Okay.
like having stakeholders, drop by the business analyst's office for a quick chat,
Oh, okay.
just to build relationships, surface issues, early foster a sense of shared ownership.
Yeah, but I could also see how that could, lead to misunderstandings or misinformation if it's not handled carefully.
That's a valid point, and the training acknowledges that risk.
Okay.
And recommends establishing clear communication protocols, documenting key decisions, and regularly summarizing information for all stakeholders.
Right. So it's about finding that balance,
Uh-huh.
encouraging that open dialogue, but also making sure everyone stays informed and on the same page.
Exactly.
Now, the training also gets into some really interesting case studies
Yes, they do.
that kind of demonstrate how these concepts play out in real-world scenarios.
Yeah, one case study focuses on a company called ABC Technologies,
Okay.
and they're facing this classic challenge. Their business is growing rapidly,
Okay.
and their project management processes are really struggling to keep up.
Oh, wow.
So they're considering automating those processes
Right.
to improve efficiency and accuracy.
Yeah, that sounds like a familiar scenario for a lot of organizations.
I think so.
So how does business analysis help them navigate this decision?
So the training walks you through a series of questions that a business analyst might ask in this situation.
Okay.
What are the key pain points? What are the potential benefits of automation?
Right.
What are the risks and costs involved? What are the different options for implementing a solution?
So it's like a detective's toolkit for problem solving.
Exactly. And the training emphasizes that there's rarely a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
The best approach is going to depend on the specific context.
Right. The specific organization and project.
Exactly.
So in this case, ABC Technologies is considering three main options:
Uh-huh.
buy a pre-built software package, build a custom solution in-house,
Okay.
or rent a software as a service solution.
Right. The classic build, buy, or rent dilemma.
Yeah, exactly.
And the training provides this really helpful table
Okay.
that compares those options across several criteria.
All right.
So you've got cost, speed of implementation, flexibility control, and risk.
So it's like a cheat sheet for weighing the pros and cons of each approach.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so, for example, buying a pre-built solution might be the quickest and cheapest option upfront,
Okay.
but it might lack the flexibility and customization options that ABC Technologies needs.
Right.
Building a custom solution might offer the most control and flexibility, but it could also be the most expensive and time-consuming option.
Okay.
And then renting a SaaS solution might strike a balance between cost and flexibility,
Uh-huh.
but it also introduces some security and dependency risks.
Right. That's a lot to consider.
It is.
So how does a business analyst actually guide an organization through these complex choices?
It's about carefully analyzing those requirements,
Okay.
understanding the organizational context,
Uh-huh.
and really facilitating discussions with stakeholders to weigh those trade-offs and make informed decisions.
So being a strategic advisor,
Exactly.
helping the organization choose the path that best aligns with their goals and constraints.
Right.
Now, I know financial considerations are always a big part of these
Oh, right.
decisions. The training mentions something called net present value, or NPV calculations.
Yes.
Can you break that down for us?
So NPV sounds complicated, but it's really just a way to assess the financial viability of a project.
Okay.
It helps you determine whether the financial benefits outweigh the costs over a certain period of time.
So you're not just looking at the upfront cost, you're considering the long-term financial impact.
Exactly. You factor in things like the initial investment, ongoing costs, and projected revenue or cost savings.
Okay.
And in the case of ABC Technologies, the training actually provides a hypothetical NPV calculation
Okay.
that suggests automating their project management processes could actually lead to a positive return on investment.
Okay. Sounds like a compelling argument for automation.
It does, but of course these calculations are based on certain assumptions and estimates.
Right, so they're not crystal balls.
Exactly.
But they can provide a useful framework for evaluating the financial feasibility.
Right. It's about making informed decisions based on the best available information,
Uh-huh.
understanding that there's always some degree of uncertainty involved.
Okay, now we can't talk about this without talking about risk management.
Of course not.
Seems like a crucial part of any project, especially when you're talking about, significant changes like implementing a new software system.
Absolutely. And the training emphasizes that risk management isn't about eliminating risk altogether.
Right.
That's often impossible. It's about identifying, assessing, and mitigating potential risks.
Okay, so being proactive and prepared rather than reactive and surprised.
Exactly. And the training provides a sample risk register
Okay.
that outlines potential risks, their likelihood of occurrence, their potential impact, and mitigation strategies.
So it's like a preemptive strike against Murphy's Law.
Yeah,
If you can anticipate the problems, you can take steps to prevent them, or at least minimize their impact.
right. So what kind of risks do you think are typically associated with software development projects?
Oh gosh, so many things, right?
Yeah.
Scope creep, which we talked about early, stakeholder disagreements,
Uh,
technical challenges, resource constraints, even just resistance to change from end users.
all of those. Yeah, it's a recipe for stress.
It is.
But having that risk management plan in place can really help keep things on track
Right.
and prevent those small hiccups from turning into major disasters.
Okay, so the training also shows this to-be process map,
Yes,
which basically outlines how their project management processes would work after they implement their chosen solution.
exactly. It's a vision of their ideal future state
Okay.
after they've made the change.
So by comparing the allies and the to-be process maps, you can really clearly see the potential benefits of that automation.
You can, and in this case, many manual tasks would be automated.
Right.
Data collection would be streamlined, decision-making would be supported by real-time information.
So it paints a compelling picture of how technology can really optimize processes and improve efficiency.
It does, but of course there's more to it than just flipping a switch and everything magically working perfectly.
Right. So the training dives into the importance of change management,
Yes.
recognizing that implementing a new system involves more than just technical changes.
Right. You need to consider the human element as well.
Right, because people are often resistant to change,
They are.
especially when it disrupts their familiar routines.
Exactly. And so the training highlights the need to communicate those changes clearly,
Okay.
provide adequate training and support,
Mm-hmm.
and address any concerns or resistance from stakeholders.
They're making that transition as smooth as possible and minimizing the disruption to the organization.
Precisely. Now, beyond those practical aspects of implementing a solution,
Okay.
the training also emphasizes the importance of understanding the bigger picture.
The strategic context.
Right. You need to understand the organization's business goals and objectives, as well as its constraints, its culture, its capabilities, and its processes.
So seeing the forest for the trees, how does this project fit into the larger organizational ecosystem?
Exactly. And the training provides some guiding questions to help business analysts align their work with that strategic context.
Okay.
So things like, how does this project contribute to the organization's goals?
Right.
What are the potential risks and opportunities? How will this project impact other areas of the business?
So thinking strategically, making sure that your work as a business analyst actually delivers real value to the organization.
Precisely. Now, the training also recognizes that the field of business analysis is constantly evolving.
Of course it is. Technology is always changing.
Right, so it's not just about learning the tools and techniques, once it's about continuous learning and development.
So embracing that growth mindset and always being curious to learn new things and expand your skill set.
Exactly. And beyond the technical skills, the training also stresses the importance of developing strong soft skills.
Okay.
Things like communication, collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking.
Right. Those are the skills that help you navigate the human side of business analysis.
Yeah, like building relationships, influencing decisions, facilitating change.
Okay, now to solidify your understanding of these concepts,
Uh-huh.
the training concludes with a series of exercises and case studies.
Yes, it does.
So it's not just about passively absorbing information. It's about actually putting those skills into practice.
Right. One of the exercises involves creating user stories for a specific product,
Okay.
like maybe a railway ticket booking app or an e-commerce portal or a mobile money platform.
Gotcha.
It's a chance to actually apply the INVEST criteria and the SMART acceptance criteria
Okay.
that we talked about earlier.
Sounds like a good way to test your understanding of those concepts.
It is. What other exercises are included?
Well, another one involves mapping user stories to specific steps or entire flows within a use case.
Uh-huh.
So really connecting those high-level user needs
Right.
to the specific functionality of the system.
So bridging the gap between the what and the how,
Exactly.
what the user wants and how the system will deliver it.
And then there are several case studies that present real-world scenarios
Yes.
and challenge you to actually apply the concepts and techniques you've learned.
It's like a simulated business analysis boot camp,
Yeah.
preparing you for the challenges you'll face in the real world.
So what kind of topics do these case studies cover?
They cover a wide range of topics, from process improvement and risk management to stakeholder analysis and change management.
Sounds like a really comprehensive overview of the key challenges and opportunities facing business analysts today.
It is now to wrap up this part of our deep dive into business analysis training. The training offers some final words of wisdom.
Okay, let's hear it. What are the key takeaways?
The training emphasizes the importance of understanding user needs, defining clear requirements, and managing scope effectively.
Okay.
It stresses the value of communication, collaboration, and adaptability.
Mm-hmm.
And it encourages business analysts to continuously learn and grow, developing both their technical and soft skills.
Okay, sounds like a solid foundation for success in the world of business analysis.
It is, and to leave you with a thought-provoking question, the training asks, how could you apply the concept of INVEST to defining goals or tasks in your personal life?
That's an interesting question. I'm going to have to ponder that one.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so we're back and ready to kind of wrap up our deep dive into this business analysis training.
Sounds good.
We've covered, trusting requirements and managing risk and all that stuff. But now I really want to get into some of those real-world case studies you mentioned.
Yeah, they really bring all these concepts to life.
Okay.
One that really stands out is the one about ABC Technologies. Remember them?
Oh, yeah, they were trying to decide whether to buy, build, or rent a new project management system.
Exactly, the classic build, buy, or rent dilemma.
Right.
What makes this case study so insightful is that it walks you through the whole thought process
Okay.
that a business analyst would go through to guide that decision.
Okay.
It starts with, really understanding the current as-is process, pinpointing the pain points and the inefficiencies.
Uh-huh.
And then it systematically explores the potential benefits and drawbacks of each option,
Okay.
considering things like cost implementation, speed, flexibility control, and of course, risk.
Right. So it's not just about picking, the shiniest new software or the cheapest option.
Right.
It's about making a strategic decision that aligns with the company's needs and circumstances.
Exactly. And the case study really emphasizes the importance of organizational fit.
Okay.
The best solution isn't always the one with the most bells and whistles.
Right.
It's the one that integrates smoothly with the company's existing systems, processes, and culture.
It's a good reminder that business analysis is as much about people and organizations as it is about technology.
Absolutely. And another key takeaway from this case study is the importance of stakeholder engagement
Okay.
throughout that decision-making process.
Mm-hmm.
So by involving those key stakeholders early and often, you can ensure that the chosen solution actually meets their needs.
Right. And that they'll actually use it.
Exactly. It's about building consensus and fostering a sense of ownership,
Okay.
which is crucial for successful implementation and adoption.
That makes sense. Now, what about the other case study? You mentioned the one about risk management.
Oh yeah, that one's a good one. It presents a scenario where a project's facing multiple potential risks.
Like what?
Things like delays in obtaining necessary approvals,
Okay.
integration challenges with existing systems, resistance to change from end users.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like a potential minefield.
It can be.
So how does the case study approach these challenges?
It demonstrates how a business analyst can use a risk register
Okay.
to systematically identify, assess, and mitigate those risks.
Okay.
So it's a really structured approach
Uh-huh.
that involves assigning probabilities and impact levels to each risk,
Okay.
developing mitigation strategies, and continuously monitoring those risks throughout the project lifecycle.
So you're not just creating a risk register and then forgetting about it.
Right.
You're actively managing those risks and adapting as needed.
Exactly. And the case study highlights that risk management is not a one-time activity.
Okay.
It's an ongoing process that requires vigilance and adaptability.
Like having a safety net in place, but also knowing that you might need to adjust it or reinforce it.
Exactly. Now, beyond these specific case studies, the training also provides some in general tips for success in the field of business analysis.
Oh, okay. Like what?
Well, one of the most important and often overlooked tips is to be a good listener.
Oh, that seems simple enough.
It is, but it's crucial for business analysts.
Okay, why is that?
Because business analysis is all about understanding the needs of stakeholders.
Right.
And that understanding starts with truly listening to what they have to say
Uh-huh.
and really digging deeper to uncover their unspoken needs.
So it's about being empathetic, putting yourself in their shoes.
Exactly. Okay, another tip.
Another tip is to be a clear and concise communicator.
Makes sense.
Whether you're writing requirements documents or facilitating meetings or presenting your findings, it's essential to communicate your ideas in a way that's easy to understand and digest, especially when you're dealing with technical concepts that not everyone might be familiar with. Yeah.
Right? And it's not just about avoiding jargon. It's about structuring your communication in a logical and compelling way,
Okay.
using visuals and examples to make your points clear and memorable.
So being a storyteller as much as a technician.
Exactly.
Okay, what else?
Well, of course, problem solving is a core skill for any successful business analyst.
Right.
You're constantly being challenged to identify and solve complex problems.
Uh-huh.
So developing strong analytical and critical thinking skills is essential.
So being able to see the big picture, break it down into smaller pieces,
Right.
and then systematically work through those pieces to develop solutions.
Exactly. And finally, the training encourages business analysts to be lifelong learners.
Okay.
The field is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
So it's important to stay up to date on the latest trends, technologies, the best practices.
So embracing that growth mindset, being curious,
Exactly.
always learning new things.
Yes, so as we wrap up this deep dive into business analysis training, I want to emphasize that while these materials might seem dry and technical at first glance,
Yeah.
they really offer a wealth of practical wisdom
Uh-huh.
that could be applied to a wide range of situations.
It's not just about becoming a certified business analyst. It's about developing a valuable mindset
Right.
and a skill set that can benefit you in any field.
The principles of defining clear goals, understanding stakeholder needs, managing risks, communicating effectively, thinking critically, these are relevant in any context.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether you're working on a complex software project, starting a business, or even planning a family vacation.
So even if you're not a business analyst by profession, you can still benefit from these insights.
Absolutely.
That's a good point.
Take what you've learned today, apply it to your own challenges and opportunities, and you might be surprised at the results.
You might even discover a hidden passion for business analysis.
You never know.
All right, well, that's about all the time we have for today.
Okay.
But thanks for joining me on this deep dive into business analysis training.
It's been fun.
It has been. And to all of you listening out there, thanks for tuning in.
Yes, thank you.
And remember, even if you're not a business analyst by title, you can always be a business analyst by mindset.
That's a great way to put it.
So go out there and make a difference.
Yes, go make a difference.